Aitzwael, Miatzap, Fa'chilam. Welcome, everybody. Whether you're hearing my voice or are viewing us on the camera, as you could probably tell, we have leveled up our LPC podcast. And that's with incredible thanks to our new social media team and our production team. Big shout out to my good friend and colleague, Carla Parker, who's our media producer at LPC. I just want to honor and recognize that our podcast, today's episode, is being recorded on our traditional unceded territories of Katzie people, located in what is colonially known as the city of Pitt Meadows. And thank you all so much to our audience for tuning into today's episode. Today's episode is a really important topic and very timely, as this episode is being released during September, which we now at LPC call Reconciliation Month. And so today's topic is all about reconciliation and, of course, scratching the surface of the residential schools and its lasting impact on our families and communities and nations, and the important work that we do at LPC today. I am joined with a very special guest who I feel like doesn't need an introduction. My guest today is my father, Richard Pierre, also from Katzie First Nation, elder and cultural advisor at Len Pierre Consulting. So many of us at LPC refer to my dad, Richard, elder Richard, as Pops. So Pops, I just want to say hi, Chika. I love you. Thank you for being on today's episode of this recording, and for leaning into this conversation around reconciliation and the residential school's legacy and its lasting impacts. So at this time, I'm just going to hand the floor over to you, the talking stick to you, to introduce yourself in your good way.
Thank you, son. There's been a number of times being asked to do something of this nature. I don't know, growing up and doing things the way I've always done it. I always shied away from being on video or getting an audio recording of myself. It was always a belief of mine that things should be personable. So trying to come to terms with being on camera and being recorded, it's I guess I shouldn't be selfish with it. This can be passed down to the next generations coming after us. So I'm still getting used to it. So if I stumble or anything of that nature, I guess just a little uncomfortable being on camera and being recorded. But no, it's a beautiful day, and thank you so much, son, for asking once again, because I know it's a little nudge that you give me. Come on, Pops, let's do this. And okay, here we are, and it's a beautiful day. It's midpoint of August 2025, and we're just talking about the weather and salmon fishing, and just life is grand. Life is great. Just enjoying life. It's all good. Glad to be here. Happy to be with you. So, Shtamakal Tiltosqui, for those that don't know me, is my ancestral name that was given to me was Shtamakal Til. My GST name is Richard Pierre. So I'm just happy to be playing along, and like my son said, we're in Pitt Meadows, BC. Just next door to my homeland that I grew up on is the Indian Reserve and Pitt Meadows down by the Fraser River at the foot of South Monson Road. So yeah, happy to be here.
Aichka. It really means a lot, and I really appreciate you pivoting and going on record, right, with cameras and mics and everything. And I know when we have our LPC team calls, Pops is like, I don't like media or cameras and recordings and those kinds of things, but I really appreciate you to leave a bit of some teachings and a legacy to pass on, your voice and your teachings in this way. So I really want to say Haichka for that. One of these questions, and we talked just before we started to press the record button. A tradition we have on this podcast is I ask every single guest, every somebody that I get to sit with, how have we come to know each other? Which is a really awkward thing to ask my dad. So is you were part of creating me. But, is there anything that you want to say about our relationship and what you know about me? The reason I asked this question to our guests is to really frame the value of relationships, relational wealth and relational currency, because everybody's related to everybody and everybody knows, we're all connected in some way. So I'm wondering if there's anything you want to share about working at LPC or watching me grow up or being a part of the LPC work in the last 3.5 years that you've joined us. Is there anything that you want to say on our working relationship or our relationship in general?
Wow, it's how much time do we have? No, it's just honestly, son, that's the moment you came into this world that's where the relationship started, and just seeing how you evolved from that little baby boy to going through elementary school and growing up, and I guess here today to see how you've matured into this amazing gentleman that so many people that we walk around with is you're talked highly of.
Wow.
And no, it's just the most special feeling to see how you've done that and you're still doing it. Just your maturity level and all the teachings that you've earned and learned, and now you're sharing it with such a high volume of people.
Mm-hmm.
It's special. I love it, and probably the reason why I'm sitting in this chair getting recorded and audio recorded in video. Yeah, it's just love how you have matured into this fine young gentleman that a lot of people are speaking highly of. So just happy to be here.
Thanks, guy. Oh, that means a lot. One of the things I love about working at LPC is getting to continue to learn along your side, learn from you, and of course, see you pass on those teachings to our team. And of course, my daughter, your granddaughter, Anna, who also works with us at LPC, to see this become really good generational work.
Good.
Pops, the first question I have is this episode is on the residential schools and reconciliation and how those two really, really large concepts relate to one another. I'm wondering if you could share with our audience a little bit about your experience teaching, because you've been teaching for many, many. Got a little bit of a ring
here,
yeah. I'm wondering if you could share with the audience. You have so many years of teaching and educating in the school district, and then with LPC today. How do you go about teaching or speaking about the residential schools? People who have never heard about this before, learned about this before. What has your experience been? And how do you teach the history of residential schools and its impact on our Oklahoma people today?
It's, I guess, not a funny thing, but growing up, going through, like you said, going through elementary school and high school, it's something that I never really considered or never really heard of, because now, today, knowing that both of my parents have gone through the process, and my grandparents and aunts and uncles and you name it, but growing up in my household, it was something that was never spoken of. Like my mother, when I started hearing about it, asking her questions about it, and it was always just, no, son, just that's not for you. It's something I'll keep. So it wasn't until I got a lot older and actually teaching in schools and I guess learning with the kids of what they were finally being immersed in is the stories of residential school and learning the timeline, and like how Canada came to be and the laws that were imposed upon our people, and then discovering how our First Nations people along this country were being treated because of these laws. So I guess from that point, it was probably around 1997, 1998, probably around the time that the government started looking into doing the royal, what do they call that? They really started digging into the impacts that the residential school had upon the First Peoples of this country.
The Reconciliation Commission?
Yeah, the commission.
Yeah.
It was like a big report that went on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think from that point, I was, like I said, learning with the kids. And then as that commission report or whatever it was called came to surface, in a lot of the elders or the survivors of the residential school thing was coming to the surface. A lot of the elders were not sharing. They just didn't want to, because you're just bringing new light to a very scary part of your childhood and the history of our peoples. I think it wasn't until early 2000s a lot of those elders started saying, you know what, we have an opportunity here to really show or really say or really tell the full impacts of what this horrific, tragic policy's done to our people and done to our childhoods and done to our families, and the impacts that it's had because of this. So along with learning the history, then now learning the stories of different elders and survivors that have gone through it, is, I don't know, it felt more, I think I wanted to lean in more. Just to seriously, I think the relationship of learning about it too, now that I'm an adult and having children, in that the same thing with white folks out there learning about it. I was learning about it too, but now that I guess being part of a family or a culture that is trying to navigate through it, and I know it's try not to have a hatred for life because of what happened to us. It's just how do we swim through it, and how do we come to the other side of the thing and still be human? So I think that's what we really seriously have to give acknowledgement to our survivors, our elders, the ones that went through the process, that they still had it in their hearts to raise families and be the way they are. And in the same breath, though, it's some families just, I don't know, will ever return back to that kind, loving people that we were long before colonization. So navigating through it, and I think that this reconciliation thing is, how do we come together as people to, I don't know, share what happened, and how do you build a relationship from that? I think, wow, this residential thing shouldn't have happened. It's a policy, or the laws that were bestowed upon our people wasn't necessary. But everything happened, and we're still here. The federal government and the first leaders of this country didn't think we were going to come out on this end of it. They thought we were going to be absorbed into the colonies and be like them. Well, we're kind of like them, but we are still who we are because of our ancestors, our elders, and the ones that had strong backbones to make sure that our traditions, our way of life, and things of that nature were kept to way it started thousands and thousands of years ago. So yeah, it's a tough subject.
It is
very tough. But we it's out there. We just have to be part of the process to tell the story or share the story. I guess have faith in the outcome of how we as Canadian citizens can still be like-minded, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate that, because I think what's coming to mind for me is just how people, non-Indigenous Canadians, grapple with the ugliness of it all, right? And I think that's what we still struggle with today, is just how ugly and hurtful and shameful it really is. But I think the hope and the inspiration that I always feel is, like, for the first time ever in the history of this country, we're not bearing that burden alone. Because what you were talking about was just like the burden of residential school survivors, our moms and dads and aunties and uncles and grandparents and great-grandparents carried that burden in silence for how many generations. And now that truth comes out to the world, and the world hope is like, oh my God, other people in other countries are like, shame on Canada. And Canadians are like, wow, like that's really hurtful thing to hear. And I don't think we're really accustomed to that in this country, ugly truths. But it's just a part of us being Indigenous today. And I really love that, what you're saying too, about how, Canada, once upon a time in this country, dreamed of a day that there would not be First Nations people, Métis people, Inuit people. Canada dreamed of a day and was very strategic, very intentional. And, this work happened over a very long period of time. And the fact that we're still here, just before we pressed the record button, we were talking about fishing that our families have been doing since time immemorial. The fact that we're still drumming and singing, the fact that we're still cedar weaving, speaking our language to varying degrees, is a testament. And the fact that we're still here is a testament to our own intergenerational strength, intergenerational resilience, and what I like to call intergenerational grace. Because it's very graceful of Indigenous peoples to hold the spaces that we hold today without that vengeance or revenge or shame on you, blame on you, we're gonna the rowdy ones.
Yeah.
So I really, really appreciate that. As this work, one of the things they always say about Reconciliation Month and the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, the media is really good at hyping this up and making it all about the residential schools. September 30th is about learning about the residential schools. And my argument is, I'm like, that's part of it. That's a little bit of it. That's to start, but it's not just learning about the residential schools. Because if we make reconciliation all about learning about the residential schools in this country, we just might forget about the Indian hospitals. If we made September 30th just learning about the residential schools, we might forget about the Inuit dog sled slaughters in the north. If we make this just learning about the residential schools, we might forget about land theft or genocide and those types of things, harder to have conversations. So that's one thing I offer our audience who's listening to us. It's not just about the residential schools. It is a good place to start. But we want to continue to do a deeper dive for the truth in why we need reconciliation in this country. Pops, I want to ask you, because I really love the way you describe reconciliation to the audience. They're on the very rare occasion when you and I are co-facilitating together, which is very rare. But I always love it when Pops and I get to teach and speak side by side, especially on the Longhouse floor. I would come in and I would talk to like 100 people in the Longhouse. I'm like, to me, reconciliation is a relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples, and we need to invest in that relationship. You've done this a couple times where you'll take the floor right after me and you're like, well, that's how my son looks at it. I have a whole different way of looking at reconciliation. So I'm wondering if you could share your story or your analogy of how you describe reconciliation to folks.
This, I guess, the analogy you speak of is, I always say it's an evolving story. So I think the first one that you're speaking of is one of the first times I spoke about it in the audience that you were talking about the Longhouse. My thinking, or my, I guess, approach to reconciliation is thinking that back at the beginning, when the newcomers came, we didn't always live on the same side of the river. They lived on the other side of the creek, other side of the river, other side of some sort of a water source. But because we're by the Fraser River, I think I'll use the river analogy, is that we were put on the same side of the river. The colonists were on the north side. I'll go north and south. We were on the south side, and thinking about what's called colonization, or not colonization, reconciliation. I thought of it as like living on both sides of the river and trying to build a relationship with the people on the opposite side of the shore of yours. Is we got to a point where, we could see each other, but we weren't able to like be together or talk or mingle together. So thinking about that sense of how do you build a relationship with the people if you can't talk to them face to face? So as time goes on, I think of it as, eventually you're going to be yelling across the creek, yelling across the stream or the river. And people are going to get more curious of, who are these people? What are they doing? And why are they different? And how are you going to get a sense of if they're different? You don't know the people. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking that, as time goes on, you're yelling and screaming at each other. That I get to the point of reconciliation in my eyes is, let's build a bridge. Let's make a bridge to the other side of the shore, and let's meet each other halfway and start to really discover who each other are. Like, you got questions about somebody, or your curiosity of how do you do things? Why do you do it that way? Well, you're getting to know a person. Mm-hmm. And I thought of it as, now, reconciliation, we're at that point where, wow, people are discovering what happened to us, and the stories are coming to the surface. And those newcomers that we speak of are our neighbors that live in our towns and are our cities, our communities, and they're thinking, how do we build a relationship with one another now? And I said, well, we're on the bridge. We're starting the conversations. Now it's a point of, if that relationship is the relationship the way it's supposed to be, come on over to my side of the shore, learn about our people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious. I've already been to your shore already, but I was welcomed, and I think that's the way I approach life now. Is I was curious. I learned the other cultures in the world, and I'm still intrigued by many cultures that I get to visit. But the colonists are still feeling that they're unwelcomed, and we're not allowed to speak to you guys, and we're not allowed to learn about you people. No, that's not the way it is. It's this. We were put in that position because of one thing, and that thing was the laws that were imposed upon our people.
Mm-hmm.
So building a bridge and coming together and learning about each other's cultures, and then how do we move on from that point, and just putting I guess, not saying it in an hour's time is, where does the future hold now that the relationship has started?
Mm-hmm.
And that it has to start with a bridge, building the bridge and getting to know one another. And what does the future hold for our people? Not just the ones on the south side, not the ones on the north, together as a unit, right?
And
Canadians, so we got to get to know one another.
Yeah.
Don't be scared to ask.
Yeah. I love that. And I think about that analogy, Iris, how I'm talking about reconciliation, especially in the month of September when it comes up. But I also love it because I really feel it's a good analogy for the work that we do at LPC. Decolonization, Indigenous cultural safety, reconciliation, what we do for our clients, the people who want to work with us, is we help them build their bridge. We help them look for their stepping stones and their bricks, or whatever their bridge looks like. We help them find those ways. My last question for you, Pops, is if somebody on the other side, a non-Indigenous organization or person, wants to find their way across to come into our realm, our world, our culture, learn more about us, if they want to cross that bridge or start building their bridge, what reconciliation advice do you have for our audience? Our audience who listens to this podcast, they're reflective of all of our clients. They work in education, they work in healthcare, they work in government, they work in social services, they work everywhere. But when you're speaking to non-Indigenous people, what advice do you have for reconciliation?
I think the biggest thing was, I don't know, I guess learning from my late mother that to have an honest conversation with someone, you have to let that person know who you are. And there was three things that I remember when I was getting into working in the school district, Surrey School District. And I told my mom, well, Mom, I'm going to work with kids. And she goes, oh, shop. What are you going to be doing, son? I said, well, just helping them complete school, like graduate and get an education. Then that turned around into being a cultural facilitator. And I had to explain to Mom, I was, we're teaching about our culture, sharing our culture, our language, and our beliefs, and you name it, anything under the culture that the kids are learning about. I'm the first-hand guy to kind of relate to it, to get it across. So she says, Sonny boy, promise me three things. When you talk to kids, you let them know who you are. Secondly, you let them know where you come from. And thirdly, who do you belong to? So us as Homo people, like Indigenous people, we always let them know who we are. Like if you carry an ancestral name, this is when we're amongst our people is who we are as, like I mentioned when I introduced myself, Shtamalkaltilsqui. That's my ancestral name that was given to me. But my GST name was Richard Pierre. And secondly, where do you come from? My father's people were the Katzie people from Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge, and Pitt Lake. My mother's people were from Vancouver Island on the Saanich Peninsula, and her nation was the Sayolt Nation. So that's who or where I come from. And thirdly is who do I belong to? Well, I didn't belong to my mother and my father from Katzie and Sayolt. It was expressed to me, I belong to my grandparents from Katzie and my grandparents from Sayolt Nation. So there's an expectation that you should act accordingly because you are, how do you say it, is you're a product of your grandparents. So just be mindful of that and always walk softly because that's where your grandparents did it. So try to do it the way they did it. Be respectful, be mindful, and people will want to know. They'll be intrigued of how can I build a relationship with this person? Well, that's the biggest thing is you introduce yourself in a I guess, humble way, a mindful way. So who you are, where do you come from, but who do you belong to?
Again.
And generally, when you meet any of us at, like, in large gatherings, those things are always three are expressed at the very beginning. So if you know the person who's speaking to you, you're generally going to want to lean in and say, hey, I'm intrigued. I want to learn. I just want to be with you. So, yeah, those are the three things I think of. Top of my mind is how we start our conversations all the time. Is who you are, where you come from, who do you belong to.
I love that because, we think about in the Western world, in the colonial world, we always think about things that need to be done, good work, like reconciliation, as something that needs to happen on the outside. And all good work, the best work, always starts with going inwards first. So if you are a listener, one of our audience members, who come from any corporate sector and you're not Indigenous yourself, reconciliation is a journey inward first. You have to know who you are, where you come from. You have to position yourself in this journey because reconciliation is a journey, not a destination. It's practice, not perfection. So I love that. That's a really great starting point. And it's totally in line with our next episode recording too, because our very next episode is, the importance of introducing yourself in a good way, sharing who you are, where you come from, who you belong to, what to say, what not to say, especially for non-Indigenous folks. Because as you mentioned, Pops, as Indigenous people, so we share that with each other everywhere we go. Elders and chiefs are the best ones because they'll take 20 minutes just to introducing themselves before they get to, the meat and bones of their talk. So this has been incredibly helpful. And I just want to say, Katzie, thank you from not the bottom of my heart, from my whole heart, for kicking off our season for this podcast. Thank you so much. And for all of our listeners, Katzie, thank you all for listening. Thank you for tuning in. And we'll see you at our next episode.
Thank you.
Good.